Have you ever wondered why economies boom and bust? Well, today we're going to tackle one of the most powerful explanations ever created, Keynesian economics. This is a theory that was literally born out of a global crisis, and it completely changed the game for how we think about recessions, jobs, and what, if anything, governments should do about it. So let's dive in and pull back the curtain on the idea that basically built the modern economic world.
So to really get why Keynes was such a big deal, we have to rewind the clock a bit. Before the 1930s, there was this dominant way of thinking about the economy. And, well, it was about to run into a brick wall it just couldn't break through.
And this quote pretty much sums up that old-school belief. The classical economists, they saw the economy as this perfect self-oiling machine. If people were out of work, no problem. Wages would just naturally fall until it was cheap enough for businesses to hire them back. If factories made too much stuff, prices would drop until people bought it all. The system, they believed, would always fix itself.
And then, this happened. The Great Depression. This wasn't just some small blip on the radar. It was a complete and utter catastrophe. Unemployment went through the roof. People lost everything. And that promised self-correction, it just never showed up. The machine was fundamentally broken, and the old instruction manual was totally useless.
Yeah, the real world just wasn't playing by the textbook's rules, and Keynes pointed this out. He said, look, in real life, wages and prices are sticky. Think about it. People don't like taking pay cuts, right? And businesses can't just slash their prices in half overnight. This stickiness meant the economy could get stuck in a terrible rut, with tons of people unemployed for years and years. It was obvious a new way of thinking was desperately needed. And this is where our guy, the British economist John Maynard Keynes, enters the story. He basically came along and said, hey, everyone, we're looking at this all wrong. He argued the economy isn't some perfect machine. No, it's driven by something way messier and more unpredictable, what people actually decide to spend.
His huge idea revolved around this concept he called aggregate demand. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. It's just the total planned spending in an entire economy. That's you, me, businesses, everybody. Keynes's revolutionary insight was this. It's not about how much we can produce that drives the economy, it's about how much we all plan to spend. If spending is low, businesses aren't going to hire people or make stuff. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so to see how this all works, let's build a little economy from scratch. To keep things simple, we'll start with just two main players. You've got households, that's us, the people who buy things, and you've got businesses, the people who invest and build things.
Now, don't let the math here scare you, because Keynes came up with this really elegant formula to describe how we spend. C, for consumption, is just made of two parts. First, there's A. That's your basic spending, the money you have to spend on rent and food just to survive, even if you have zero income. Then there's BY. That's the part that depends on your income, Y. It's the fraction of any money you earn that you decide to go out and spend.
And that little letter B is the absolute engine of this whole theory. It's got a big name, the marginal propensity to consume, or MPC for short. All it's asking is a simple question. If I give you $1 extra, how much of it are you going to spend? If your MPC is, say, 0.8, that means you'll spend 80 cents and you'll stash the other 20 cents away.
Okay, just look at this table. It shows this idea in action perfectly. Let's say our MPC is 0.75. See how every single time income goes up by $100, spending goes up by exactly $75? That consistent, predictable behavior is the key to everything that comes next.
So when is our little two-player economy in a state of balance? Keynes called this equilibrium. It's that sweet spot where the total amount everyone plans to spend, that's household consumption plus business investment, is exactly equal to the total amount of stuff being produced. No piles of unsold goods, no one screaming for products that aren't there. Everything's just balanced.
All right, now we get to the really mind-blowing part of this whole theory. What happens if you introduce a new chunk of spending into this perfectly balanced system? Well, it's not just a one-time boost. Oh no! It creates a ripple effect, like a stone tossed into a lake, and the final size of that ripple? It's incredible.
This is what's known as the investment multiplier. The whole idea is built on a simple truth. My spending is your income, and your spending is someone else's income, and their spending is someone else's income, and so on and so on. So that first little injection of cash gets passed around and multiplied as it zips through the economy.
Let's just follow the money for a second. Let's say a business invests an extra $100 building something. That $100 goes into the pockets of workers as income. Now, if their MPC is 0.8, they'll spend $80 of it.
That $80 then becomes income for, say, a grocery store owner. And what does she do? She spends 80% of that, which is $64, at her supplier. And you can see how this just keeps going, right? That first $100 is setting off waves of new economic activity.
So what's the final tally from that one little $100 investment? Well, once you add up all those ripples, the first $100, then the $80, then the $64, and so on down the line, the total boost to the economy's income is an amazing $500, a 5 times increase. That is the incredible power of the multiplier.
And you know what? The math behind this is surprisingly simple. The multiplier, which we call K, is just 1 divided by 1 minus the MPC. So in our last example, with an MPC of 0.8, you get 1 divided by 0.2, which is 5. It's that simple. And it shows you the more willing people are to spend any extra cash they get, the bigger the economic splash.
Of course, the real world isn't just households and businesses, right? So now it's time to make our model a little more realistic. We're going to add in the other 2 big players, the government and the rest of the world through international trade.
A really good way to think about this is to picture the economy like a bathtub. You've got things that add water to the tub, we call those injections, and you've got things that let water drain out. Those are leakages. So things like government spending and selling goods overseas, exports, they're injections. But taxes and buying stuff from other countries, imports, those are leakages. They pull money out of the system.
Okay, so now that we have all our pieces on the board, injections and leakages, we can finally go back to that very first puzzle. Why do economies go through these crazy booms and painful busts? Keynes's model gives us a really clear way to understand it. It really just boils down to 2 main problems. First, you can have a recession, what Keynes called a deflationary gap. This is when total spending in the economy is just too low. People aren't buying enough stuff, so businesses fire workers. The opposite problem is an inflationary gap. This is when spending is too high. Everyone's trying to buy more stuff than the economy can actually produce, and that just pushes all the prices up.
And this, right here, leads us to the most famous and controversial part of the theory, the Keynesian solution. If the economy is stuck in a recession because people and businesses aren't spending enough, well, the government can step in and fill that gap. By increasing its own spending or by cutting taxes to give us more money to spend, it injects new demand into the economy. And remember the multiplier? That initial government boost gets amplified, helping push the entire economy back toward full employment.
This quote just nails the whole idea. The key word here is counter-cyclical. It means the government should lean against the wind. When the private economy is slowing down and saving too much, the government should spend more. And when the economy is booming, it should pull back. It's all about using public policy as a balance wheel to smooth out those wild economic swings.
And that right there leads us with the big, central economic debate that is still raging to this very day. Keynes gave us this incredible framework for understanding the economy and a powerful toolkit for managing it. But the question of exactly when, how, and just how much the government should use those tools, well, that remains one of the most important and hotly debated issues in our modern world.